Come on in the room. As the song said, we gonna be all right. Yes, men, we gonna be all right. Tonight is about us. I know. Tell me about it. I haven't seen y'all in a little bit, but I'm excited. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I got to put that out there because guess what? There's some great dads out there in the world that show up, that do what they need to do for their kids. So before we get started, happy Father's Day to you. Hope you had an amazing Father's Day with your kids. And if you didn't get to see them, I hope you got to get some love from them. Okay? But tonight is about us. He emotions, his emotions. Wow. You know, because sometimes us men, we get too strong. We don't want to share those emotions. We become bears. So you know, this Therapy Tuesday is special. It's going to be powerful. So if you know a brother, you got a husband, a son that needs some tips, some tools, because, you know, we all need some tips and tools. I need some tips and tools because sometimes that bear like to come out. So guess what? Tonight it's going to be powerful. And women, don't leave, because guess what? You can get some tools, too, to help your son, your husband, your brother, whoever the special men in your life. You know, people think just because you're in a position, hey, that you can't use anything, you can't get a little extra resource. Well, I'm here to tell you that's a lie. But tonight, guess what? We're coming to bring some tools to the bag. It's Therapy Tuesday, where you bring your shattered pieces to a place of wholeness. I'm telling y'all, Miss Janae got something powerful for y'all tonight. Then we got a special guest, my brother Ronald Wynn. I'm telling you, y'all, this thing is about to get crazy on tonight. So we're live, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We all over the globe tonight. Why? Because it's about you all. It's about the men. It's about bringing the kings back to kingdom. I'm here to tell y'all. I'm here to do something. God is doing something. So as I get started, y'all know Miss Janae. She's no stranger to this place. This is her home, her second home, her third home, wherever she want to call it. But this is home. You know, she always brings gems, jewels. She's a powerful, powerful woman of knowledge, understanding, and gifting. You know, she doesn't just talk about what she's learned, but it's also a lot of experience in there. She's a wife. She's a mom. She's an entrepreneur. She's a CEO. She does it all. You know, and guess what? Even a therapist needs a break. So, y'all, you know, guess what? Y'all make sure y'all give Janae a break and give her some hand claps because she comes out here every month for us to pour out to us. So we're thankful for that. But he emotions his emotions, the truths, the myths, the lies, the undetected things. We're coming today to give you some tools to help you to discover those things in the man in your life. So I'm going to bring up Miss Janae Ponder to the stage. I need y'all to give her some fire, some hand claps, a shoulder rub, something just to let her know you're with us. Like it, share it, comment, get interactive. You know, guess what? Because, hey, the more you talk to us, the more we can talk back to you because it's not about us, it's about you. So, Miss Janae, come on to the stage.
All right, I'm back home. So, I'm no stranger here. I want to present some information in a practical way. Take what you need. Nothing I say today, I don't want to use a brush to paint everybody. There may be some outliers to the content that I share. Just take what you need. As always, if you get triggered, take care of yourself. This might trigger some people. The conversation is a conversation that is not commonly had. So maybe information you never even knew, and it might trigger something. So take care of you. My main objectives for today, I just want to raise awareness about how traditional masculine ideals are instilled in boys from a young age. Young boys are indoctrinated from the moment they get out of the womb to perform and be a certain way. Um, I want to highlight the psychological and emotional consequences of those social norms, promote healthier and more flexible notions of masculinity, and encourage supportive environments and open discussions to challenge some of these harmful norms. I also want to say a big happy Father's Day to all dads. It was Sunday, but we're celebrating the whole month of June. Our kings. It doesn't matter if you don't have biological children. If you show up for people in a fatherly way through thought, deed, or consideration, happy Father's Day to you. Keep doing what you're doing. The world would not be where it is without the love and protection of fathers and father figures. So happy Father's Day. I want to open up by just asking a question. Connect with me. Let's have a really good discussion. Why don't men get mental health care when they need it? That's just a question. If you are a male and you feel comfortable putting in a chat, put it in there. If you're a female, you want to take a swing at it. Oh, and I want to preface my presentation by saying I do not know what it is to be a man. I don't know what it is to suffer emotionally as a man. I am purely an advocate and someone who has held space for men when they've been in some of their darkest positions. So I'm really looking for male opinion, male input, and participation. So, why don't men get mental health care when they desperately need it? That is the discussion question that I'm opening up with today. And I'll just answer it and hope that something comes through pretty soon. And, they don't even know that they need it. Some, they don't know that they don't know. They did. Some men are so indoctrinated and stigmatized when it comes to mental health care. They're not even aware that help is possible, and they're not even aware that they are facing mental health issues. They just think it's normalcy. Fear, insecurity, denial. Absolutely, they're afraid. It makes them feel insecure, and they deny what they're feeling. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is childhood indoctrination. You guys have heard all of these things that I'm going to bring up. Boys don't cry. That is the lesson that's taught. Compete and be dominant. So boys aren't even afforded the opportunity to be soft and or delicate without being called less masculine or being maybe judged as not strong or weak or lazy. Boys are taught don't express your feelings. And here's the danger of it all. A lot of, especially when we talk about intimate relationships, one thing I hear amongst women is he's emotionally unavailable. Well, of course he would be. In childhood, he was taught not to express feelings. And it's not just going to come on in adulthood just because he's in a relationship. So some of this indoctrination really makes it hard for men to have healthy relationships. Role models reinforce that to be respected and valued, you must conform. Think about this. If you're a man, think about this. Think about your role model in childhood. They probably checked all of the boxes when it comes to social norming men. They were probably, and if they weren't, they had the image. They probably looked very strong. They probably were very athletic. They were very powerful, very well respected. They probably were charismatic. And that reinforces the idea that if I want this same type of respect and value, then I need to conform with what society says I need to be if I am a male child. And then there's pressure, all kinds of pressure. You get pressure from parents, you get pressure from peers. Just think about maybe a sports team. Think about the less talented participant on that sports team. They are probably picked on a lot for not being as strong or as athletic. So there's a pressure to perform and show up just how everyone expects you to show up when you are born in this world. So, men, I want to validate you guys today. It's not your fault. You're not waking up choosing to be this way. And I want you to know that you are not the problem here. It is society. Society as a whole really is the problem. And, we heal in community. I hope today that what's taken away from this is that this is a everybody issue. When we are all stronger and supporting men in a better way, men are going to be stronger. So here are some of the lessons that you didn't even know you signed up for after you were born. You didn't know you were in the school called life, and you were in the class that indoctrinated you as a child, and these were the lessons you got, and you didn't even sign up for the class. Men should be emotionally resilient and unaffected by hardship. That means that life is going to throw you lemons and curveballs, and you're expected to have a smile and carry on like it doesn't impact you. That is a lesson that you signed up for that you didn't know. Men should suppress their emotions and not show vulnerability. The word vulnerability means wound. So men should push down what they feel, hide it, and never tell people when they're hurting. That is a lesson that you signed up for that you didn't know if you are male. Men should have self reliance in the ability to manage their own affairs without needing help. So, the lesson you got there is it is not okay to ask for help. But we know the reality is we all need support and we all need help. So, you are taught not to ask for help. Pretty dangerous in a place where you're going to need help. Men should be powerful and able to handle the challenges with toughness. So that means no matter how broken you feel and you are, you need to appear strong and tough and dominant and continue forward no matter how you're feeling on the inside. And men should be dominant and in charge of situations. Here's the reality. Some men don't have in charge skills. Some men may not be designed for that. And unfortunately, if you are a man and you're not designed for that, you better learn how to because you signed up for it anyway. So those are the lessons that society gives men. And men, again, it's not your fault. You didn't sign up for it. Society did. And I encourage anybody who's raising boys right now that's watching this to do some serious reflection on how some of these lessons might be impacting your household and be extremely mindful to curate and create narratives and a doctrine that will create very sound and emotionally balanced boys. Because the earlier we start, the better they're going to be, and the more mastery they're going to have as they get older. So the reality is, social norms are leaving our men socially suffering. And I don't even think men are suffering in silence anymore. I think suffering in silence is what women do. I think some men are suffering in spirit. And I'll give you an example why I say that. Women, at least shame will keep us from publicly announcing what hurts us. But we will still get on the phone with our friends, our close relatives, and we still open up to a point. Men, even with their close bros, usually still won't even have those type of conversations. So women, we might be suffering in silence from time to time, but men start to suffer in their spirit because they're not even emptying themselves out, even in smaller, safer circles, because they're just not programmed to do that because of these social norms. I know I'm teaching, but if there's anything that you feel led to pop in the comments, please do so. I'm looking at it. So I want to honor you guys if something happens that you need to get off your chest while we're talking about this very delicate topic. So let's talk about the impact of these lessons that you guys didn't sign up for. You're going to live a life of emotional suppression. And emotional suppression is dangerous because you never honor yourself. Anytime you can't fully express your emotions, you give permission for what you want to not happen. What are the long-term term effects of living a life of never really getting what you want? You're going to feel empty and broken and unfulfilled, demotivated, and it's not going to be a life worth living. Isolation. A lot of times we don't realize that a lot of men are not only in physical isolation, but they're in emotional isolation. The only one that has any idea about what they're truly feeling is themselves. I have had many couple sessions, and you would not believe that even people who have been married for 30 years, wives don't know the true state of their husband's emotionality because men keep it on the inside, even from wives after long-term marriages. So that's a different layer to that isolation. Increased aggression and risk taking. Well, if we're programming young boys to be aggressive and dominant, aggression and anger is how you maintain your power. So a lot of times when we see aggressive young boys, they're being programmed to maintain power, and that's the only skill they have to maintain that power. Lower relationship satisfaction. Again, if you're not advocating for your feelings, your needs, and your wants, that means your partner is probably really not meeting your needs. And you're probably very dissatisfied. And you don't even have the language or the awareness to call it out and self-advocate. Reduce help-seeking behaviors. So men will not ask for help. and is significantly diminished, especially compared to how women will kind of self-advocate and get help. And the proof is in the pudding. I've been doing this type of work. I started my practice in 2018. I promise you, I may have treated maybe 10 men compared to maybe hundreds of women. Um, Probably not even 5% of that total number has been men. And they don't stay in treatment longer. They tend to have non-compliance, meaning they may come. I've had a lot of men come to that first session, and the idea of them opening up is so scary. They never come back. I've had some men, when I start to kind of get to the core of what they're feeling, it scares the crap out of them. Um, and that anger comes up and that frustration because they don't want to get to the core of the issue, because again, that voice that society has put in their mind says that's weak, you can't be that. So they don't allow the therapist to really take them there. So it's hard to ask for help when help hurts, because you're reminded that you may be weak if you identify what's actually hurting you. Identity conflict. There's a disjointedness that happens. So there's a version of you that the world gets to see, the strong one that never hurts. And then there's a version of you that only you know about. And you are confused about who you are. You don't know who you are. You don't know your values. You don't know what's hurting you, why you're hurting. You're just confused. So you have an identity issue happening. And then physical health issues. Obviously, you're under a lot of stress. If this is you, you might have hypertension, which may start to impact your bodily functions. You might develop diabetes. You might start having other somatic pains and arthritises simply because of the stress that you're carrying. And you're constantly pumping the cortisol stress hormone and constantly pumping adrenaline, constantly angry and aggressive. So you're going to start to have health issues, not just mental health issues, but physical health. Also, when we talk about reduced help seeking behaviors, not only do men not want to go to mental health professionals, men also don't want to go to the doctor. The idea that you should be independent and not get help doesn't just impact the mental health component, but the physical health. How many men, women, if you're here with me, um, how many men have you heard say, I don't like going to the doctor? They can't even tell you why. Well, I'm going to tell you why today. Because you've been programmed to believe that you don't need help. And men should be so strong enough and be so independent that they don't even need a medical professional who's gone to school to study health to help them manage their health. And that's pretty dangerous. That's the power of social norming. So the barriers, there are also some barriers to men getting help. Social norms, of course, is a barrier. I've said that probably 100,000 times today. Poor mental health knowledge. Think about it. If you guys are taught to suppress mental health symptoms and not even deal with them, society doesn't even have a value in prioritizing educating you about mental health. So I can bet my bottom dollar that if I put a group of women together and a group of men, that the group of women could more intelligently and confidently talk about mental health in general, and more comfortably as well. So, and then also, if I don't need feelings, I don't need to learn about them. So now there's no interest in even learning about mental health. So yeah, poor mental health knowledge is a barrier. If you don't even know about mental health, you don't even know it's a problem, and you won't even seek help. Shame caused by stigma, shame caused by self-stigma is more important here. So if you see yourself as wrong or mental health as wrong, you're not going to get help. Symptom expression. Sometimes the way that symptoms are expressed are suppressed and repressed, and they are reformed to look more masculine presenting. So sadness looks like aggression. So sometimes we can't even properly diagnose depression because it looks like some type of conduct disorder or something else that looks more behavioral, but really it is a condition of moods. But we can't see that because it's repackaged in a way where men can live with themselves and not feel like they're weak or broken. Clinical bias, especially with younger boys, society is more likely to label them as bad instead of ill. So what does that mean? Boys are more likely to get suspended from school for behaviors than referred to a school counselor or a mental health professional. And the lack of men-centered services. Well, I told you I probably have treated maybe the population of all the people I've ever treated, maybe 3 to 5% of that has been men. And I can tell you, my treatment is not men centered. It's men safe, but it's not men centered. Imagine if there was specialized care to deal with some of these specialized issues that societal norms have created to deal with what men are dealing with. And there are some out there. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they're few and far in between. So, what's the goal? I talked about the problems, the barriers, how it starts in childhood. There is a goal here, and I'm going to provide some very practical tips for how to achieve these goals. Two goals. One, the goal is to get men to emote freely. I imagine a world where men could be theatrical and can cry and can laugh and can just freely express themselves without having to deal with harsh criticisms or judgments or emasculation. That is what we want men to do. We want men to be okay with crying. For the lack of a better term, and I hope this doesn't sound like a judgment, we want men to be drama kings in the world. Say, it's okay, king, you can be dramatic. It's okay. You're allowed to be dramatic. You're human. You're not weak because you feel. You're human. That's why you're feeling. And then also need to help men increase their emotional wisdom. You know, women say men are emotionally unavailable. Women, here's a better term that's not as dehumanizing. And belittling maybe. They just lack the wisdom to navigate their emotions. We need to increase their emotional wisdom. So the treatment that I'm going to recommend, and the reason why I'm recommending this one is so easy. It has 5 steps. This is actually an intervention. This is where I want you to lean in. And this is for men and women, because women can also use this. And women, if you're listening, but maybe someone you love is not on, take some notes and share this with them. So the treatment is called radical emotional acceptance, and there are 5 steps to this. Step 1 is very simple. Put down your shield. Well, what does a shield look like when you're talking about emotions? So a shield looks like a defense mechanism, and we know defense mechanisms exist to protect us from those intense emotions that we think we can't survive and we think we can't handle. So a defense mechanism may look like rationalization. It could look like projection, but I'm going to tell you the number one defense mechanism for men: anger. Most of the time when men are extremely angry, that is just a defense to keep things at bay and away. Because if things get too close and he gets too vulnerable, then he has to show his wounds. And that's what's dangerous. So it's interesting. A lot of times when you think about defense mechanisms, sometimes you think about defending yourself from an outward thing. But men are literally using anger to defend themselves from inward intense emotions like disappointment or sorrow or sadness or emptiness or worthlessness. Men can feel empty, men can feel worthless, but most men won't allow that to be expressed because in most men's minds they've been programmed, that's too feminine. I can't go around saying I'm worthless. What people going to think about me? Who's going to help me? Who's going to care? So the first thing is put your shields down. Try to work on identifying what is under that anger. Anger is how you're expressing it because that's the safe way to get it out. But there's sometimes disappointment under that anger. And I'm going to give a little scenario to kind of help you as I'm going through this. So step 1, put the shield down. And remember, this process is called radical emotional acceptance. Step 2, name the emotion. Anger is the defense mechanism. Anger is not the emotion. I'll give a scenario. Maybe you are somebody who has been very angry with maybe a colleague at work, a partner, or a friend. And when you really reflect, anger is what I've used because I really don't want to be vulnerable and say I'm disappointed. But maybe the emotion that's there is disappointment. So we're naming this emotion for this imaginary person. It's disappointment. But it was expressed as anger. Maybe this person yelled or used profanity or told somebody to back off very aggressively. but they did it after feeling disappointment, but expressing it as anger. So name the disappointment, name the worklessness, name the sorrow, name the sadness, name it even if it doesn't seem socially acceptable for you to feel that way. And if you were in therapy with me, I would help to identify if you are kind of slipping back into some of those social norming habits of just only sticking to the feelings that you feel comfortable with. Once I build good rapport, I try to therapeutically and kindly remind you that you're getting back into your old habits. Also, we use tools. You may get an emotion wheel. Sometimes I love social media, especially Facebook, because now when you post a status, there's so many emotions on there that you can pick. I say sometimes act like you're going to post a status and maybe get a reference point for how you might be feeling instead of just reverting to anger or numbness. I think men kind of go through those two extremes, not feeling anything or super angry. Step three, listen to your emotions. So maybe this colleague or this partner has done something to violate you. You express it as anger, you named your emotion, and you said, I am feeling disappointed. Now, the next step is, what is this disappointment telling me? Maybe after further reflection, maybe in therapy or through journaling or just thinking and reflecting, maybe you discover, man, I am disappointed because I'm always very respectful to this person and they just disrespected me. So what has happened here is my values have been violated. The value of reciprocal respect has been violated. And I express anger, but really I'm just disappointed because I thought we had it better than that. I thought I've been so kind and respectful to you that you would at least give that back to me. So disappointment is telling you you don't like to be disrespected in this way, especially when you are very respectful. And a lot of times when you suppress emotions, you don't get to listen to your emotions and you don't get to hear what they mean and what they're telling you because the only emotion that you express as a defense mechanism is anger. And you're not really getting to the heart of the issue. But imagine being able to listen to your emotions and figure out what the problem is and what to do about the problem. Then you can self advocate. So maybe you decide, okay, I've heard that I'm feeling disappointed, and the disappointment says I really don't like being disrespected when I'm respectful toward other. So step four is either act or don't act. So what are you going to do with that information? You don't like you don't like being disrespected by others, especially when you're respectful. So what are you going to do? Are you going to get aggressive and pop off like you've been doing and it's been ineffective and getting you nowhere? Or are you going to have a heart to heart conversation where you express, hey, I've been feeling disappointed and I want, and let me tell you something, when you're having those conversations where you're advocating for yourself and establishing some boundaries, I want is going to be your go to. Don't be afraid to say what you want. I want, when we are having communication, it to look this way. But men don't get to do this because they're suppressing the feelings, expressing it as anger in a defense mechanism way, and are not able to even act in a way that will solve the problem. And think about this, if you're not solving the problem, it just lingers on and on and on. And that anger is there on and on and on. And you're breaking down on the inside. So the fifth step, this might seem a little abnormal to some of you guys, but I promise you, it is very advantageous. Thank the emotion. You know, a lot of times we treat emotions as bad or negative, but there is no such thing as a bad emotion. And the reason why there's no such thing as a bad emotion, because no matter how intense the emotion is, it comes with information that tells you what you need to do. And when you learn what you need to do, you can solve the problem. And because it tells you how to solve a problem, it's a gift. And that gift is something that you could be thankful for. So learn to thank your emotions. In the scenario that I just used, thank you, disappointment. If I never felt disappointment, I wouldn't know how to advocate for people to respect me. Thank you for that. So this is a process that requires mindfulness. You might need a little support while you're going through it, but I promise you, the more you practice it, the better you get at it, the more you master it. So women, use this for yourself. Teach your men how to do this. And men, if you're listening to me today all on your own, practice this. Do it. Get you a journal. I'll go over the steps again. One, put your shield down. Get rid of those defense mechanisms, usually expressed as anger. Sometimes numbness, because if you just shut down and don't feel nothing, people back off too. Step two, name the emotion, not that primary defense one of anger, but the ones that are under there that you feel are too soft for men to identify and express. Three, listen to what that emotion is telling you. Once you get that data from that emotion, decide if this is a situation where you need to do nothing about, or you need to self advocate. Maybe you need to end a relationship. Maybe you need to change your environment. Maybe you need to stop what you're doing. And then five, thank that emotion. Thank you for giving me the information I needed to change the trajectory of my life so I can stop living in a rut of isolation, of suppression, and I can really get on with healing. So, how can we as a world, I said, I think this is a society issue. How can the world better help men with their mental health? I got a few recommendations, and there, of course, there's more, but this is just what I thought of. Allow men to emote without judgment or harsh reactions. Let men be emotional. We allow women to be emotional all over the place. Allow men to do that. Let men cry. If you're someone who stops your son from crying, I want to encourage you to try the opposite action. Allow them to cry. Give them a tissue. Hold them. If you're someone who you don't like to see your partner cry, sit in that. Try to just sit in that. I can be a little transparent. I know that I had an issue with watching men be extremely emotional, and I'll tell you why. My issue with watching men be extremely emotional is because I've never really seen men be extremely emotional. So it's kind of like a shock. Like, oh. And then it was like, okay, this is your first time experiencing this. What do you do? How do you? And here's the answer if any women need some tools and tips. Just be present. The ministry of presence. You don't have to say the right words. You don't have to try to solve their problems. You don't have to make their emotions your responsibility. Just be by them. Just be there. Just be present. No judgment, no criticism. Whatever is coming up and you feel the urge to lash out or match their energy, remind yourself that men need a safe space to express their feelings as well. Imagine that you have maybe a container and your job is just to hold those emotions that your partner is expressing in that container. That's it. And I'm going to be honest, this is something that even now in marriage that I have to constantly remind myself to be mindful and do. Janae, get your container out. His emotions are not your responsibility. And then, there's even some myths about love that kind of mess some of us up. Love teaches that love is everything. Love is even the therapist that can handle and fix our partner's emotions. But that's a myth. Sometimes our partners are going to feel very intensely, and it's nothing we can do about it but watch them go through it. Watch your partner go through those intense emotions and just learn to be present. Indoctrinate toward emotional wisdom. Emotional wisdom comes from listening to our emotions, and that step that I gave you. So teach boys about feelings in early development. Buy books. There's so many books on Amazon now about feelings and how to express them, and kindness and happiness and caring. All of those things that we don't teach boys naturally to do. You be intentional about making sure you put those lessons in front of your boys. You might even be the facilitator and the teacher of those things. And allow them to cry, allow to kiss their boo-boos, allow them to play with things that are deemed as less than masculine without overreacting. Self-reflect. If you have done some things that are part of this social norm that I'm talking about, challenge yourself to be a little better. Just make a decision today. This is a call to action, just to do a little bit better after today. Don't cry over spilled milk. Don't go judging yourself and beating yourself up because of what you did. You can't help what you didn't know before this presentation, but now that you know, take small baby steps and just do a little bit better so you can raise boys that are emotionally wise. So when they decide to find wives, they can be emotionally intelligent. They can self-advocate. They can even ask for space to express their emotions and without feeling like they're violating the man code or the bro code. So I just want to check for understanding as I'm wrapping up here. And I always do some true or false. Not listening. So if you're listening to me, you want to participate, put T in the comments if it's true, false in the comments if it's false. Not listening to emotions can create emotional unintelligence. Is that true or false? Not listening to emotions can create emotional unintelligence. T or F? T if it's true, F if it is false. So that is true. If you don't listen to your emotions, it can create emotional unintelligence. Listening to your emotions gives you the data you need to be wise. So wisdom is knowing what to do when. If you're not listening to your emotions, you're not going to know what to do when, so you're not going to be able to be wise. But let me take it a step back. If you're not even naming them and acknowledging them, then you can't listen to them. The next one, men are encouraged from a young age to express their emotions. Is that true or false? So men are encouraged from a young age to express their emotions. That is false. Most men are not encouraged from a young age to express their emotions. They are actually taught and programmed to suppress their emotions. And like I said, I don't want to cluster everybody in the same box, but shout out to those parents who are not doing that, who have made it a goal and a value to raise well-rounded boys, to feel and to express without feeling judgment or feeling like they're doing something wrong. And the very last one, thank you guys for commenting. And I see you guys in the chat. Social norms are not a barrier to men's mental health. Social norms are not a barrier to men's mental health. Is that true or false? That is false. Social norms are indeed a barrier to men's mental health. And the people who support them subconsciously also. So this call to action for the community, the first step is we got to wake up. We got to pay attention to the social norming that we didn't ask for that's shoved down our throats. So that way we can do something about it. So as always, I want to talk about my book. So Girl Dad, a coloring book for Black dads and daughters. You can get it on Amazon. Just a fun activities to remind dads of what they can do with their children. Also a great way to just express and to be mindful and to learn how to anchor your thoughts where you want them to be. Fearless Queens, a coloring book for Black women. That's also on Amazon. Again, a great tool for mindfulness. A lot of simple affirmations for very common challenges for women. And then my favorite of all of them, My Therapist is Black. This is a coloring book for Black therapists to help ground them, remind them to drink water, talk about some of the little nuances that only Black therapists are privy to because of our plight, and the uniqueness and the nature of us being unicorns. And then 100 Bold Affirmations to Calm Your Fears, a book written to help people have a tool to deal with the fears that keep them stuck and from being productive. As always, I want to leave you with some resources. If you need a therapist, try psychologytoday.com. You can put in your zip code, your insurance, the issue you're dealing with. You can even narrow it down to the race of the therapist that you prefer, and a list of people in your area will pop right up. Now, we're going to open it up for a discussion. We got a special guest on with us today. If you guys have any thoughts or feedback, please send them in. I'm here for you to take advantage of me. Ask away in the chat.
As our special guest gets together, I'm gonna come up. But thank you so much for the tools, the tips. Today we get a special, because normally I'm asking you the questions and giving you the questions. So y'all, from a male's perspective, if you have some questions, drop them in the chat. But me and my brother Ronald Wynn, he's a powerful brother, entrepreneur, man of God. I mean, I've known this brother for about 3.5 years now. When we connected, it was just awesome. He's very transparent and vulnerable, and He's just awesome. So I'm just thankful for his perspectives, what he does. And so, man, Janae, you get the stage. So I'm gonna bring up Ronald.
What's going on?
All right, Mr. Ronald. So I guess the first question I want to ask you and Ahmad is, what can women do in intimate relationships to better support men?
Um, wow, that's a first of all, it's an honor to be here for sure. Thank you, Ahmad, for allowing me to be on your platform. And thank you, Janae, as well.
Mhm.
Um, I believe that one thing that women can do is to be able to I want to say, create the atmosphere or the space for him to be vulnerable. Because
Mhm.
it's one thing for you to ask your man or your companion, hey, can you talk to me? But if you don't make it conducive, if you're not even what's the word? If you're not even friendly yourself, right? If you're not even understanding yourself, how could I express to you how I'm truly feeling? So I think the first thing is to create the environment. The second thing is also to understand that um, men and women are alike, meaning that we all have emotions. So being aware that he does have an emotions, and just like yours as a woman is important, so is a man's, right? So is your man, so is your companion. So I think that's at least two things for now. That's critical to helping men.
Okay. Thank you for that. So essentially, really just what I heard you say that you didn't say was creating the same environment that you want to be safe emotionally for me. You know how like a lot of times I see women, um I'm speaking from a woman's perspective. I will admit sometimes we require or ask for things from our men to so we can feel mentally well, but a lot of times we don't create that environment for you to be mentally well.
Correct.
Yes, yes, yes. And
And
that looks mhm.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's also understanding that just like love, right? Um, I I can't love you the way I love, right? I have to love you the way you're able to receive it. Same thing when it comes to communication. Just like there's a love language, there's also a communication language. I have to be able to communicate with you in a way that you understand. Just because I speak Spanish and you speak English, I shouldn't just focus on talking to you in Spanish, right? I have to focus on how do I talk to this person in English, or how do I blend the two languages to get you to understand what I'm saying. So I
Mhm.
think it goes both ways for sure.
So, with you saying that, is there a special way that women need to talk that you think would be, I guess, a general way that men receive it? And I guess an example would be, do men typically like women to initiate these types of conversations, or is it better if a woman kind of allows a man to initiate on their own? Like, what is the blueprint, or if there is one?
There's definitely no blueprint for sure. That's the unfortunate part, but there is a blueprint for everybody. So I think typically just understanding the power in your voice, right? And I think that as a man, coming from myself, I would love for my woman to initiate those conversations, right?
Mhm.
But the language that she needs to speak is to have an opening ear, right? An ear to listen and slow to speak. Because of the fact that um, I've noticed, and I've been in relationships and I've been around people where women would discredit a man's emotions, and they would just keep talking and thinking that they know how we feel, when it's like, let me express it. And if I tell you I'm angry, don't or if I tell you I'm okay or I'm happy, be okay with that answer, instead of creating something else, because
Mm,
then that would eventually create more frustration of, oh my god, now I'm irritated because you just not listening.
got it. So Believe me when I tell you what I'm feeling.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So I guess the very last question that I have for my own mind is,
Hmm.
if you feel vulnerable enough, you or Mike can answer this. What has been the biggest challenge for you as a man related to mental health, emotional expression, all things in that category?
Mm. Uh, I mean, I would say for me, it's just the support system, and it goes deeper than just having a woman to support you, but both a woman and a man, right? And both younger and older, of all generations. I think if we can develop having uh, at at least like a what we call in basketball your starting five. So if you can have your starting five, right, where you can be able to call on people and lean on them, um, humble yourself to know that if you call on them and they don't show up, that's okay. You have to lose or don't hold the attachment that they need to show up every time. But when they show up, that they will show up in the areas that you need.
Okay. So support, the lack of
Yes.
support. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you.
Well, look, and I
You're,
got stuff on there because it was some good stuff given. With your first question about what do men need, I think one of the things that is critical is a man having the space and knowing that it's okay to release those emotions. At times, depending on where he is or where he is in a relationship or with his partner, he doesn't want to seem less than the provider. And so it's like, if I express this, will I still be the same strength that you see in me? So I can say, for example, for myself, when I was married, I didn't show my emotions the best way. I didn't handle myself the best way, and it caused a lot of problems. And therefore, because I learned from that, but a lot of that, as you said earlier, it was from suppressed childhood trauma. Things that I didn't deal with, I didn't talk about, because at times as men, we don't feel like nobody is listening. It's like you say you want me to talk or you want me to open up. However, you are not giving space for those things to happen. And so with that, it's like, what's the need of talking? Or
Mm.
I share something traumatic from childhood, because again, now that little boy is coming out. Where is the comfort or the nurturing for that experience? Not that he's weak. However, saying I understand that is that inner boy in you crying out to say, hey, this happened and it's been a struggle. This is why I have this anger. This is why, I respond like this. This is why, it's hard for me to deal with men, whatever it may be, because everybody's situation and story is different. So if you don't have a safe space with your partner, who do you have a safe space with?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard to get communities, especially now, of men together regularly. Of course, June good is Men's Health Month, Father's Day, all these different things, but on a daily basis for men to support men is really scarce. And that's why our incarceration rate is so high. That's why, we have families breaking up because men are not having the space to speak of what's going on inside.
Mm-hmm. So it goes back to what Ron was saying, just the lack of support. And I'm glad you brought something to my attention. If men are social, if society programs men to not need support, then society must be programming society not to give support, right? So there is a social norming toward not needing to show up for men. So if you guys are listening to this chat right now, my mindfulness says do the opposite. So if we've been programmed to not show up for men, let's show up for men. Let's do it with intentionality. Let's put it on our calendars. Put something on your calendar to remind you to do something nice for your partner, your father, or something. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Let's start to show up for men, even if they reject it a little bit, and I would imagine that showing up is in all sense of the word, emotionally, physically, financially, because there's even a lot of talk about if bills should be split 50-50, if a man should cover the whole household, but I mean support all the way around. It sounds like, am I accurate? You need support in all categories.
Absolutely. Especially with where our society is today, supporting, emotions, finances, is needed because, hey, rent some places just as high as a mortgage. And depending on that man's job, he may be coming up or building up. So he may not have all the resources now, but is his vision to a place that, hey, if you don't want to work, he can do that. And so I think one of the things also with this for, those in relationship things is, does that man have a vision for better? Because where he started is not always where he'll end. And when he's talking to you about that vision, will you hear it? Will you listen and be able to say, okay, you know what? I know you may be doing this, but I see the efforts and you trying to build something for us. Because ultimately, of course, the woman is looking for a provider, a leader, a nurturer in certain aspects. And so how is he in tune with those things? And how is he showing you that this is just the foundation of what we're building? This is the foundation of my start, And the other thing I want to add, Janae, is women at times when that man is talking, listen, because they may not talk all the time. And so if you're giving him a quick response, you may shut him up or shut him down. And so listen, if he's starting talking, you're like, well, you real talkative today. Just listen and embrace it because he's telling you there's something going on the inside that I'm trying to release to you.
And I want to bring up, this is deep because, I think on another level. So I unfortunately believe that in some cases, not all, men enable women to do that. And I will explain. Because you guys are programmed to be our everything, our providers, our protectors, sometimes you create this atmosphere where, baby, anything you want is yours. Talk to me. I'm listening. You create an atmosphere where anything goes when it comes to that. Men are taught to suppress what they need and elevate what the woman needs and wants. So we get into a pattern and a dance with you where your needs don't matter because they never come up because you don't bring them up. And it's a pattern of overly expressing ours because you reinforce that through the psychological programming of being our protector, our provider, our everything. So really what needs to happen is a deprogramming from both sides. Women need to be put in a position where this behavior isn't reinforced. So men, it's time to speak up. It's time to self-advocate. You can't be everything to your woman anymore. It's time to say no. It's time to say, please listen to me. And if you are a man who's listening to this and this is you, I've been everything to my woman. That's how my dad was, or that's how I've been programmed. Really evaluate how that has impacted your mental health and how it's now create a dynamic where there is no space for you because there is no space for you. So the enabling of women to be this way has to stop, is what I'm saying. And I'm saying this from experience because I often tell my husband to speak up for himself, and it's okay to tell me no. And he says things like, I want you to be happy. That's what he comes back to me. I want you to be happy. And I'm like, no, your happiness is important too, but that psychological programming is so pervasive.
Can I speak on that?
Mm-hmm.
This is good. I'm loving this conversation. Because so there's two parts to this, right? There is the responsibility of the man, right? That you as a man, and I was just talking with Ahmad right before this, that you need to seek or you need to have a covering, right? So you need to have specifically a male covering for a man, right? And on the responsibility of the man, if you don't have that covering, you won't even know how to steward over yourself well, which means that you're not going to be able to steward well over your relationship with another woman. Then when it comes to the woman's responsibility, even though we are talking about your emotions most of the time and not mine, I believe that if you truly care enough and you are truly making yourself intentionally aware, enough, what happens is you now make it a priority of that man's emotions, even if he does not say anything, right? Allow him to not speak, allow him to, be what is it? He might not, share his emotions, and that's okay. But if you are the one that truly, loves and honor your man, then you're going to steward over the relationship well by prioritizing his feelings. So whether he want to express it or not, a woman that's truly in love is going to get it out of him. And she might have to do a little extra. She might be a little creative, but at the end of the day, she's going to get it done. So I think there is a responsibility of both the men and women on that to make sure that you are both playing your parts.
I totally agree with that.
All right, and I got one more thing that just hit me. I think one of the key things is finding the environment that works best for your man to talk. Because hey, if he just came home from work and you can tell that there's some things going on, and you're like, "Oh, babe, what happened?" This, because some people and women need it too, depending on their job. They need a moment to decompress. Did you give your man the space to decompress? And do you know him enough to understand his body language when he's ready to talk? The times he may be ready to talk are when you're driving, or when you're laying in the bed. And so you have to figure out that balance of what works for him, because we can give you tips and tools, but that may not be what works best for him. So figure out, hey, what is the best moment for him to respond in a way that I can create something with him and help him.
Mindful with all interactions as a man. And then the community responsibility to make mental health safer for men. Now, I don't have the solution for that, but I guess platforms like this is planting a seed for a community awareness that we all need to make it safer and better for men. We need to make the world a better place for men.
So I have a question for you, Ahmad.
Oh, not me.
I gotta always ask you the uncomfortable conversations. I know we're talking about like relational about it being like in that aspect, but if we can talk about your feelings when it comes to you being a father and you having a daughter, right? Because I know there like when it's you, a man and a woman, right? You kind of sort of have some sort of expectation to that person that they can do their part. But what happens when it's tough to express yourself to your daughter that is not of age, or your daughter that's growing up in age? How do you handle those situations?
Amar, you want me to respond to that, or you want to respond?
Well, we can both respond, but
Okay.
for me as a man, so I try to be very transparent and vulnerable with my daughter about different things, because life will happen. My daughter has seen me cry. My daughter, I don't have to yell at my daughter, but she knows when I'm serious. And so one thing I do understand, I am the first representation of what my daughter will see as a man or as a partner later on in life. I am the first example of that. And whatever I do, good or bad, whether it's how I respond to her or others, each aspect is critical. Also, how I provide, how I show up. Am I there? Am I being a man of my word? So, now I'm at the place where I don't promise her nothing. I'll tell her, we'll see. I'll see what I can do. Why? Because I know what broken promises feel like. I know going through the situations that I went through in life, and I'm like, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen, and it didn't happen. So she was let down. So now I tell her, hey, well, let's see. We'll see what happens. Why? Because I don't want to give her a false impression that I am Superman, because I'm not. And I think at times as fathers, we do want to be Superman. However, we are Superman in so many other ways. Yesterday my daughter was down for Father's Day, and she went back yesterday. And at times I feel like I'm not giving enough. But when she was leaving, she cried, and I understood that those tears weren't because she was necessarily in a bad situation. It was because for the moments that I showed up, she's going to miss. And so one thing I've learned as men, we have to show up in the best way in every way. She doesn't live with me, so being on the phone, texting, FaceTime, and whatever way that you can be present will be impactful to your children, whether it's a male or a female. Granted, I have a daughter. However, little boys seek that father figure and that image. And so we have to, as men, show up consistently. Don't try to be perfect, but be consistent. And so I'll also say the one thing that I do try to give my daughter are the principles of life. I tell her, hey, daddy can't do that. Or, this is this. You want this costs this much. This is how much daddy makes an hour. This is how much daddy makes a week. Does that add up? She was like, oh, that's dumb. Right, exactly. Because I want her to understand it's not that I don't want you to have it, but what's more important. And so she's learning, and I'm appreciative of her getting to the place that we can have real conversations, but also she can understand, wow, daddy, you work hard. Or even saving her money. She's getting to the point now she's doing real good, walking around. She's like, oh, well, I'm saving my money. But I know that comes from tools and tips that me and her mother are instilling in her. And that's the other thing that I would say when it comes to showing up for her, is also seeing how I treat her mother. Because ultimately, that also helps her to understand how a man's supposed to treat her. Because she knows how I treat her, but when you see how a man treats another woman, so not only is she experiencing it, she's seeing it. And that's very important. Sometimes we don't realize the effects because of frustration, not getting along in the moment, or having a disagreement, how it can affect what that child sees, even though you didn't do it to them directly.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
So what I was gonna, and I'll say this quickly. You touched on some of the points, Ahmad. I always teach dads to mirror their children's excitement, mirror the emotion. If you see your kid is sad, reflect that back. If you see your kid is excited, reflect that back. Because what happens is, a lot of times when men are emotionally unavailable or suppressing emotions, they don't just pick who they're doing it with. It is natural, and it's happening even with their children. But when men suppress their emotions with their children, it comes off as disinterest, not loving them, invalidation. And when a child feels that, it demotivates them. It messes up their internal motivation. A lot of times kids won't even try or take risk or be the best version of themselves simply because of the perception of the love that they're receiving from a parental figure. And I would imagine if it's from a daughter, it sets the foundation for what they learn to expect from love from men in general. So it's really important just to show up in the way, even if you're not interested in unicorns and pink and nail polish and Tinkerbell, you match the energy, because you don't want to give off the impression that what they value, you don't value, and you don't want to demotivate them. So that's the only thing that kind of came up for me. It's just try not to display emotional suppression when you're interacting with your daughters.
Well, that's good. And the last thing I add to that, your community is everything as a parent. The community that you have supporting you also supports your kid indirectly. And so whether that's emotional support, spiritually, and they see that. And so the healthier that you are with your community, the healthier you're going to be with your child. Because when we're drained or down out, our children feel that as well. Oh, well, that daddy's down today. Daddy's not feeling it, because you got to kind of take a moment to say, you know what? Let me pour back into them and let me see. Not that I'm not tired. However, you have to make that space, give them a safe space, because they didn't ask to be here as well. And so, hey, in those moments, you have to compromise. Say, okay, hey, we'll do this today, or we'll take a moment to do these things that we've been putting off for a little while. Because one thing about kids, they remember. And so just make sure that you show up and you try to, I tell you, one of the things I do is tell my daughter, send me some pictures of it so it'll help me remember. because I can't remember it all, because she's always telling me different things, showing me different things that she's like and interested in, and it changes constantly. So what I do is try to keep a tally of those things that are going on in her life. So Janae, if you have anything to add, on that. And also, Janae, this is one thing I want you to add. For the fathers that says, I really don't know how to show up for my kid because of friction with that parent. How can I do that?
I definitely say sometimes you need therapy, because like how I just went through the exercise with you guys, it's so hard and it's so dangerous for men to get to those deeper, more intense emotions. And you can't really process what needs to happen if you're not really getting to the core of what's happening. So you sometimes need a professional to kind of teach you how to unlock some core memories, and maybe even through some trauma focused therapy. Because sometimes, believe it or not, men don't just have PTSD from going to war, but they have PTSD from the trauma of being unable to show up as a father, or the dynamic of the relationship with a child's mom has been traumatic. And there's literally a mental block there for protection. I always teach you guys that the brain and body is designed to protect itself. So not going there is literally a survival tactic. I can't show up because my brain has registered showing up as unsafe. So you will definitely need some trauma focused therapy to unpack that and deal with that.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Ron. I appreciate you for showing up, brother, and giving your insight on today. Janae, as always, you have been a blessing. I pray that people got some things out of it. And if it's been a blessing to you, please put something, some fire, some hearts, or something in the comments just to say, hey, I gained some valuable information. So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. You have been a blessing. Janae, thank you as always. So until next month, hey, y'all will see Miss Janae as well. Hold on, before I forget, if you need Miss Janae's service, go to lifespirecounseling.com, or you can reach out to 386-400-3100. She is on the way of taking the back seat, so get her while she's still hot, because her life is transitioning. However, if you know somebody or that needs therapy or counseling, please connect with her or her platform, Lifespire Counseling Services. They are amazing. They're on the East Coast and they're thriving and growing. So Janae, as always, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for being who you are.
Thank you for having me.
So y'all, I hope that you gained some knowledge, some tools on tonight. We're trying to switch it up, make it more active, and make it better for you. It's not about me. It's about us. It's about the community. It's about kingdom. One thing about mental health, it is real. I can pray for you. Your pastor can pray for you. Anybody can do all those things, but do we have tools in place? So this is what Therapy Tuesday is composed of, to give you tools to be more successful, not only in the kingdom, but in life. So before we leave here tonight, I have to pray and give you a word also, and give a few announcements. We do have our women's conference coming up. Guess what? I can't do it by myself. I don't do it by myself. Just like this connection with Lifespire, it takes a community to do some things. So, I appreciate all of you. leave, I have to pray. Father, we just thank you for the word on tonight. We thank you for all that Janae poured out, all that Ron poured out, Father, and all that I gave. Father, we just ask that somebody was touched in a mighty way. Father, we thank you for bringing men back home. We thank you for allowing men to be kings in the kingdom. Not just kings. Everybody wants to be a king, but Father, we thank you that they will be kingdom. So, Father, we just thank you for locking arms with men across the globe. Father, for building men's ministries and men's health, that men will take their stance. Father, we just thank you for every broken heart, every spirit that has been in turmoil. Father, everybody that is grieving, everybody that's going through a painful moment in life. Father, I just ask that you send your angels and encamp around them. God, touch them right now. And Father, I plead the blood of Jesus over their life, over their children, over their finances, and over their family. Father, do what only you can do. Father, have your way. In Jesus Christ's mighty name. I love you. I love you. We are here. If you need us, reach out. We're praying for you. We're believing God for you. We're standing in faith with you. Because guess what? You have to keep your head up because there's nothing to look down about. Keep being amazing. Keep knowing your purpose and keep believing on purpose. God bless you and good night.